Mason.
And it's so good to see you, Harold.
As much of a stalwart worker for the Democratic Party as ever in all my life met, and I'm so happy to see you here. We're just coming up to the election, and welcome. Welcome to Conversations. A pleasure to welcome to the program Trudy L. Mason, and I'm saying she's a stalwart member of the community that supports the Democratic Party and the democratic process. One would say within our society, she's a wonderful hard worker, and one and all that are in those realms are familiar with her. We're going to talk about the election. Trudy, so good to welcome you to Conversation.
Harold, it's always good to be with you. I always enjoy these conversations, and I think we've been having them now for about, I don't know,
20, 25 years?
Well, I guess
Almost.
I was about 6 at the time when we started them,
I
right?
think so, right. And now you're 36. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so you see, it must be 30 years.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, that's right. I remember doing that one with Barbara Trent.
Yep.
She won the Academy Award for one of her films.
Yeah, she did. That's when I was going to El Salvador, when we were still down there intervening in El Salvador.
Yeah.
It's like Yogi Berra said, deja vu all over again,
Yes.
because we just keep on intervening. Whenever we have a Republican administration, we seem to be doing something like that.
James Joyce said history is a nightmare. In the minds of many people, the last 8 years have been a sort of nightmare from which we hopefully are awakening. A lot of people feel that way. But we got 58 minutes, and we're now on the eve. This is going to air just a week or so before the election. And so, but I wonder if you could ground it for us a little bit, Trudy. Your own personal background, born and raised, a little education. And how did you come to become so stalwartly a member of the Democratic Party organizing
Well, I am now the Democratic State Committeewoman for the east side of Manhattan, the 73rd Assembly District.
Well, how far does that go? What does it cover?
Oh, it's basically the east side of Central Park, and it sort of goes it goes up and down. You know, we have gerrymandering, so it zigs and zags back and forth. But it's basically from Central Park to either 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, and it goes down as far in parts down to 39th Street and all the way up to like 96th, 97th Street. Again, zigging and zagging.
Right, I understand, but it's sizable.
Basically the east side, the east side of Manhattan.
Yeah, and that's where you reside also.
And that's where, well, you can't represent a district unless you live there.
Is that right? Okay,
that's
I don't know the
both
truth.
for party officials and for elected officials. Wherever you are, you have to live in your congressional district or your state assembly district or your state senate district
you're
or your city council district. Yeah.
You're a New York State Democratic Committeewoman now.
Right.
That's
it means
title.
I represent the Democrats who live in the 73rd
You're on the Rules
Assembly
Committee?
District.
Or?
No, I have been a delegate over many years.
Yeah.
I was at the Democratic State Convention this year, and it was my 11th. National convention. Did I say state? I'm sorry.
You did say
national convention. I also have been at state conventions. We just had one. But
you were at the convention in Denver?
I was at the convention in Denver.
Oh, what a place! Did you go to the stadium?
I was at the stadium.
Were you cheering?
I have been at every convention since 1964.
God bless you.
Which was held in Atlantic City, and at that one, I was a Johnson girl, and now, which was quite a thing for a feminist, which I proudly say that I'm a feminist, as well as a Democratic Party official. I've been doing this for literally. How did I get started?
Yeah, how did you get started in this world? Where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, brought up in Queens.
Right.
Went to college in Massachusetts. I'm a graduate of Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts.
Where'd you study at college?
I actually majored in history.
Okay. A lot of it.
A lot of it. Actually, it was Russian history. And I did my thesis on Lenin and the NEP.
No, master's thesis or doctorate?
It was a master's thesis.
Yeah,
it was actually an honors thesis that then became a master's thesis, which I never finished the coursework for the master's. I wrote the thesis, but I never finished the coursework. Got involved in a political campaign, actually.
Which one was that?
Oh, God. That was, well, when I was in college, John Kennedy was running for president.
Right.
I actually helped found the Young Dems at Wheaton, and wound up being Eleanor Roosevelt's escort at her very last college speaking tour. That was in March of 1962, and she died in September of 62.
What an honor.
Well, if you can imagine, for an 18-year-old, 19-year-old young woman who loved politics and having the opportunity to spend 3 days with Eleanor Roosevelt.
I'll say. No wonder.
But I was already interested in politics before that because I had started when I was 14 years old. I walked into Stevenson headquarters, the second campaign, and I said...
56.
56, and I said, what can I do to help Governor Stevenson? And they said, here, kid, address these envelopes.
Right.
And I've been doing
stamps,
it, and I've been doing it ever since.
God bless you.
I have taught about politics, the political process. I'm teaching a course right now at Marymount Manhattan College called An Insider's View of the Current Political Scene.
We could talk a little about that today, don't you think?
That, absolutely. But I always say that in school we learn the 3 R's. You know, we always say reading, writing, arithmetic.
Right,
If you really want to get politically active, you learn the 3 S's. Stuffing, stamping, and sealing. And that's what it's all about, getting that information out. Now we can add also
how do you get
phone call.
into
We can also add a P, which is making phone calls.
Oh, yeah. What about the Internet? That's becoming important now. And Obama's been using it to great advantage.
When I got started, you didn't have an Internet.
I know.
You didn't even have Xerox machines.
All we had was whiteout.
We had whiteout, and we had mimeograph machines and rexograph machines. I really am dating myself.
No, we're dating ourselves, darling. Yeah.
But anyway, yes, I've been active a long time because I think you have to be active.
Okay.
Eldridge Cleaver, who in the 60s, you know Soul on Ice, that marvelous book.
Sure, of course.
And he said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And especially in these times, we have to be part of the solution. Because as we said at the beginning, if you don't do something, you'll just get history repeating itself, and we can't afford, literally in the economic sense, obviously with what's going on now, but also in terms of just for our, not only our pocketbooks, but for our soul, really, as a nation, as people who care, something has got to be done.
And you felt that way for a long time on the Democratic side of things.
Well, there have actually been, I always say that I vote for issues, I vote for, the Democratic Party just happens to be where I stand on almost every issue. Sometimes I'm even to the left of the Democratic Party.
Would you have ever supported Nader, for instance? Or
no, I wouldn't have supported Nader for a lot of other, not because he wasn't a Democrat, because I don't like a lot of the things that he has said and that he has stood for. I have supported within the Democratic Party, again, I'll give you another wonderful quote. Will Rogers said back in the 20s, I wasn't around then, but I know this quote, which is, I don't belong to any organized political party. I'm a Democrat.
Right.
And
they are kind of anarchistic, aren't they? The Republicans seem to be very well organized, very organized traditionally.
One other great quote from Bill Clinton, who I think is one of our great presidents and will go down in history that way. And Bill Clinton has often said the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is Republicans fall in line. Democrats need to fall in love.
I see.
And we really have to. And I think this last election cycle has absolutely proved that out to be true. But right now, we are trying to unite behind Barack Obama.
Right.
I will say for the record that I was a big Hillary supporter.
You sure were. I know that.
Yeah,
that I am sure of. Yeah. And you have feminist leanings in terms of your own personal political philosophy.
Absolutely. I am very proudly say I'm a Democrat and I'm a feminist.
Yeah, and you were also a heavy supporter of Hillary. You must have been upset when she did not get the nomination. Or share with us that people, because there's a lot of people that may be a decisive element within this election now. There were a lot of people who were so upset that she did not get the nomination or possibly vice presidential designation. And that could be a problem with Dems going over toward, even there were some Dems, I understand, female Dems going over to McCain or something in their angst or upset over the fact that Hillary did not get the nomination. You're familiar with all that.
You might have noticed, and in case you haven't, I am wearing a button, which the words were made by Gloria Steinem, the greatest feminist. And right after the election, we had a unity breakfast of Hillary supporters and Obama supporters because many of us just felt we had to come together.
Yeah.
And Hillary had said that in her speech in Washington, and I was down there for that speech, that when she left. And wasn't she magnificent at the convention in her speech?
Yeah,
also?
They were all committed.
But Hillary especially. But Hillary has said privately to small groups of us, publicly, that she is going to do everything and has been doing everything to help get Barack Obama elected. We fight, we have differences, but then we must come together.
Share with me.
And the word is party unity.
Okay, share with me your feelings when it became clear that it was going to be Obama and not Hillary, and you had been a strong supporter of Hillary. You would have been in that coterie, and so you would have felt that. That must have been, you would have liked to have seen her get the nomination.
Well, of course. I think, but it wasn't just because I'm a friend of Hillary's, a supporter of Hillary's, known her for so long.
Right.
But I've always said that I supported Hillary not because she was a woman, not because I'm a feminist, not because of those reasons, but because I felt she was the best candidate.
Right.
However, I also always say when all things are equal, if you have a man and a woman running against each other and they are equal, then I will support the woman. And I felt Barack Obama, all of the Democrats that we had out there, we had the most amazing
You're
group.
talking Denver now?
No, I am talking way back.
Oh, way back. Yeah, you've been at the trenches
in the primaries,
for a
while. At the very beginning of the process. And we had the process going on, as you know, since January of 2007.
Yeah, you people were really in the trenches.
It's been a long time.
Were you surprised at Iowa when he won the primary in Iowa?
We had an amazing... Now, Iowa was not a primary. Iowa was a
caucus. Yeah.
And there is a big difference between those two things.
He does well in caucuses and covered that area well.
Caucuses work. When I teach my class, I'm not going to take the time now to do it. Yeah. But there's another old line that goes, there are two things you never want to know how they are made. Sausages and laws.
On laws, yeah.
But there's a third thing, and that's caucuses and how caucuses operate. Because it is an unbelievable system, and it is a very few people making decisions that affect everybody else.
But that was a game changer, don't you think, in terms of the feeling about the election? Because if you go back 5 years or so, there would have been a number of people who thought Hillary was a shoo-in to become the Democratic candidate with that Democratic Party, Mr. Clinton, and all of that, and then Obama coming out of left field was able to overcome that. So there must have been some rancor or some feeling of competition with him by people who were loyal supporters of her. And we want to get at that because you're wearing a badge and say we got to support Obama now, and so is she.
Well, no,
Big issue.
What it actually says, it says Hillary supports Obama.
Now.
So it doesn't say now on it. It just says Hillary supports Obama, so do I.
Now.
6 words.
Yeah.
6 words. This button, Gloria came up with the words right after Hillary had pulled out.
I think the same night.
Obviously, we didn't wear this before because we were supporting Hillary.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard for people who are really active and really supporting someone when they have to change. That's what I'm trying to get at. And you personally, I know, were very, very strongly supportive of her.
But I am
was it a trauma for you? No, okay.
Was I sad?
Yes, and all of that.
Was I sad?
How do you get over that
you get
kind of a thing
over
when
it because
happens?
you have to get over it. It's very simple.
Yeah.
And when Hillary said to us, we have got to all unify, and we have got to all come together behind Barack because that is the most important thing. We need to elect a Democratic president. We cannot have 8 more years of the same that has gone on.
You wouldn't want 8 more years of George Bush?
No,
I should think not. Yeah, right. I mean, it's almost been theater of the absurd.
Well, except that it is now affecting all of us very personally. We are in a war which we never should have been in.
Right.
But it is affecting the economy. Yeah. And it's not just Wall Street, to use that the hardened phrase, it is Main Street as much as Wall Street, and even more, and it's you and me, even though we do have a Main Street here on Roosevelt Island.
We do.
But we don't have a Main Street in Manhattan, but it affects every one of us.
I think Broadway's our main street, or Fifth
Broadway
Avenue?
is but we're talking about the main streets.
I
We're
know,
talking
I
about
know. The people.
The people.
Yeah.
And we cannot have 8 more years of Bush. And that's what Hillary has been saying, and she has been going all around the country.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are a small group, but very vocal group, of Hillary supporters who say they don't believe her. They don't believe. They call themselves the Pumas. And then there are others who call themselves other, but as a group, as a sort of an umbrella, they're known as the Pumas. And that stands for, it doesn't stand for the sneakers, doesn't stand for the animal. They put it together. It's an acronym. It's their acronym. It's not mine, so you will excuse my language right now. It stands for Party Unity My Ass. And that is so wrong, because we really have to come together. And that's why I have been out there campaigning. As soon as Hillary said she was out, I was out there for Barack Obama.
No reservations or.
No,
okay, good. Okay,
any more than Hillary.
Why were you able to make that transition and the Pumas weren't? Do you think? What does this spell in terms of the electorate writ large, particularly the female side of the electorate?
But Pumas are not just females.
Oh,
there are male Pumas out there also.
Who were supporters of Hillary?
Who were supporters of Hillary.
Okay.
I don't know. I've tried talking to them. I've tried reasoning with them. And they just say that they don't believe it. Well, look, there are a lot of bitter feelings. And I will admit to this also, that there are a lot of bitter feelings, not so much against Barack, not so much against the other candidates, not so much against the supporters of Barack Obama, but mostly against the misogyny, which most showed up in the media, and most showed up with people who were, I think they were just misogynists, or as we used to call them, MCPs, male chauvinist pigs, who were out there. And some of the misogynists, unfortunately, were females also. There are a lot of females who don't like having female out there because they suffer from what we call the queen bee syndrome, which is that in the hive, they'll help women along, they'll help other female bees, the worker bees, along to a certain extent, but then they say there's only room for one queen bee in the hive, and it's got to be me. So there are women like that who don't like the idea of a women rising to the ultimate power.
There are people who don't like anybody else rising to power other than themselves. That's called narcissism in a certain sense, you could say.
But the way that it was directed at Hillary, it's called misogyny. And you asked about
That's still a big problem.
You asked,
in this world as well as this country,
Oh, well, it came to the fore in this campaign. And you asked about Iowa. After Iowa, there was New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's right. That was a big turn. Everybody had written her off practically.
And Hillary won New Hampshire.
I know.
And one of the things that went on in New Hampshire, and I was actually there was a Hillary rally, and while we were all there, these men came booming in with these big, I don't remember what the signs said, but one of them said, "Iron my shirts." And another one said, "Make
Get
my
in the
sandwich."
kitchen. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was disgusting. It was horrible. But that was going on. These were a little more visible than what the other things that were going on. But some of what was going on and then, of course, Hillary finally, towards the end of that primary, actually was the Hillary that I know, which was very human, talking about
she
from
wept?
Her heart. She did not.
She did at a place up in New Hampshire.
She teared up.
Teared up. Oh, okay. That's different than wept.
And no, she just was talking emotionally. She
or
was
like a real human being. Like a real human being. Right.
And just like so many men have done. And there were men during this campaign who teared up at various times, talking about their families, talking about other things. But of course, because Hillary was a
Biden
woman,
did the other night
because Hillary is a woman, therefore, see, she's just using this to tear up. And then when she
won,
just
one of those feminine wiles.
And when she finally won a magnificent victory in New Hampshire, they said, "Oh, it was because she got everybody to feel sorry for her." Well, that's not so. No matter what you do, if you're a woman, you learn to expect this. That a man is forceful. A woman is pushy.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Man, I mean, they're the same thing that a friend of mine who's a psychologist actually did a chart which showed the same action by a man and a woman, but being described in totally different way.
Yeah.
And everything that the way describing the woman was negative. And that's what we have to deal with. I won't even begin to talk about how the media treated Hillary, because I'm with you, though I have to say that's why it's wonderful that there are programs like yours that we can actually say these things. But the media, and I won't name any names because I think everybody in your audience knows who some of these people are.
Yeah.
And some of them have actually apologized on the air for going too far.
Do you think Mr. McCain chose Miss, what's her name, Palin, in order to try and get some of those Puma votes?
Yeah, well, if he did that for that reason and didn't choose the best candidate, Barack Obama chose the best candidate, the best person to be his vice president.
You wouldn't have liked him to. He could have chose. There are a lot of people said a dream ticket. He could have chose Hillary.
No, I did not.
You did not want him to do that?
No, because Hillary is my senator. Hillary is the senator from the state of New York. Hillary will go back to the U.S. Senate as a power, and Hillary will be able to get through the Senate, because don't forget, we have 3 branches of government, and we need leaders in the Senate, and Hillary will be able to get health care through the Senate.
Boy, she's been on that from the beginning.
Well, but that is so important for
Absolutely.
you and
Couldn't
me.
agree more.
I mean, I know what I had to deal with. I lived without health insurance for 3 years.
You did?
Yeah, I sure did. And then, thank God, I'm over 65 now, so I have Medicare. So finally,
Thank you, Franklin Roosevelt.
Finally, I am taken care of. No, actually, Medicare say thank you, Lyndon Johnson.
All right, you're right. All right.
Social Security, which I also have now, thank you, Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, that's right. And that set the ball rolling, I think,
But,
out of a terrible economic status that born that,
But the fact is that we need Hillary's voice in the Senate.
Okay.
And I will only give you one other example. Everybody said, why didn't Hillary pull out earlier? Why didn't she get out? Why did she even think about taking it to the convention? Well, I will remind you, in 1980, when Teddy Kennedy, who had a lot less delegate strength and was challenging Jimmy Carter, he took it all the way to the convention.
Yeah.
But then when Teddy didn't get the nomination, he went back to the Senate, and we all know what a wonderful force for everything, for all of our liberal, progressive causes, he has been in the Senate since then. And I know that Hillary is going to be just like that, an able successor, and we all should be praying for Teddy Kennedy's health, and that he is back to being the way he was before this horrible cancer.
Yeah, you got a glioma, I think.
But absolutely, Hillary will go back to the Senate, and she will be Hillary, and with greater strength because of what she accomplished.
So you don't think that's just a fallback rationalization on your part?
I was saying this all along.
Even during the campaign when she...
Absolutely. When it came up, well, would she be, if he was the nominee, should she be vice president? These discussions went on for a long time. I will say that a lot of very strong Hillary supporters, like me, there were very differences of opinion. Yeah. And we all agreed to disagree. Mm-hmm. But then
that's the Democrats for you.
But then we all came...
Much less the Trotskyites. You ever go to a Trotskyite thing? How many, the differentiation gets so down to how many angels can dance on the head of a pin of a dialectical interpretation of the materialistic advancement of society. They can get down they can really
Well,
splinter.
if you really want to see that, you should rent the movie Reds, which Warren Beatty was so brilliant
Diana Keaton,
in.
Right? Yeah.
And they have an actual meeting of the Trotskyite before they were going in, and it really is. That is a wonderful movie.
I remember that. Yeah, it was great. New York's such a great town. You got so many different people here. You're on the east side, west side. Is that? Yeah, okay. Now, let's get to the election now, because here we are. What's the date today? 9th
but you did ask me a question about Sarah Palin, which I'd really like to answer.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be like Sarah Palin now and say, you know why. But since you did ask, since you did ask the question, all I will tell you is that if John McCain chose Sarah Palin, just because she was a woman. That is the absolutely wrong reason. As
well,
I
it's
said
a political
before,
reason. There are various political reasons.
But then he is underestimating the intelligence of Hillary supporters, of women in general. To think that we just vote. Can I give you another quote? And again, this was on...
It's a big issue.
This was on national television.
Yeah.
It was on The View, and Joy Behar said it. I jumped when I heard her say it. I said, are they going to allow this on, not on cable TV where you can get away with saying just about anything.
We can say anything here, right?
But this was on regular broadcast TV.
Yeah, national.
And it was right after McCain had chosen Palin, and Joy Behar, who I think is great, said, John McCain should realize that we're going to be voting for a vice president, not for a vagina.
Yeah, right.
And that is the case. If he did that, I would be terribly, terribly disappointed
in John
McCain, who I think, as Bill Clinton has said and others have said, the old John McCain, not the John McCain of today, but the old John McCain,
Straight
was probably
Talk Express,
the best. Well, how did you like Barack's line that the Straight Talk Express has derailed?
Well, one likes a lot of what Mr. Barack Obama says. Yeah.
But I will tell you that would be such a disappointment, that to think in this day and age that those of us who were supporting Hillary were only supporting her because she was a woman. That is so, so wrong.
Well,
Hillary, as far as I was concerned, and so many of her other supporters, and God knows Hillary had so many, almost as many male supporters as she did female supporters. And it wasn't because she was a woman, because she was the best candidate who just happened to be a woman.
Well,
and wasn't that wonderful?
I got another great movie for you to rent. It's called Casablanca, where they said, I can't believe there's gambling going on here. And then Claude Rains got his thing. Politics is a lot about interest groups, and they break it all down in that, and their decisions made, political decisions, to win an election, because it doesn't do you any good if you're not going to win an election, and all politicians have that somewhere in their mind about where do they think they can corral the most votes in the most important swing states and so forth. And so he would have been making it along political lines in order to get to be elected president to change the world the way he sees it, right? There's gambling going on, they said, here in this place. Or there's political maneuvering going on within this political campaign. I'm shocked.
As Claude Rains said, I am shocked to hear you say that.
Then the guy stuffed his winnings in his pocket, You understand what I'm saying?
Isn't that going on down in Washington
that goes
right
on
now?
in politics.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And you hear about the proverbial smoke-filled rooms, even though now we've stopped smoking, and actually the convention was a no-smoking zone.
Was it really?
It really was, yes.
Oh,
yes.
boy, the world's going to hell. You can go in a saloon downtown where they got sawdust on the floor and pool tables and people having fist fights, and they'll have to all go out on the street to smoke a cigarette.
Well, do you know, by the way, I don't know if you just heard, but in Atlantic City, where they were going to stop the gambling in the front room in the casinos, where they were going to stop smoking in the casinos, and the Atlantic City City Council just voted to postpone it for a year because of the economy. So now the economy is also affecting our health and our well-being, because they said that the gamblers would go elsewhere if they couldn't smoke.
Right.
So
gamblers are more likely to smoke, I think.
That's
Plungers
what they
will smoke because there's a psychological component to that.
You know, I don't know. I was a very heavy smoker, and I stopped it will be 24 years on November 6th.
You keep track of that sucker,
Well,
right?
no, you want to know how I remember? Because it was in 1984, I was New York State Press Secretary for the Mondale Ferraro campaign.
Okay, Ferraro, yeah.
Yeah, and I also did some traveling with Geraldine, so believe me, as bad as the chauvinism is now, it was even worse back then.
Right.
But I made a promise to myself and to others and announced it all over the place. And
what was the promise?
I was going to stop smoking the day the campaign was ended.
No matter whether you won or lost?
Win, lose, or draw, I was going to stop smoking, because I had used the excuse for too long that whenever I was under intention, I needed a cigarette, I needed something. And I said it to everybody so that I would embarrass myself into doing it.
You didn't do it. And it worked.
The day after the cold turkey, which to me is the only way that you can stop. But anyway, so I don't know how we got off on this.
I don't either, but it's interesting. It's got metaphors of that political thing, and
yes,
you're tying
absolutely.
it into now, we're coming up to the election. Obama's coming up. Who's going to win the presidential election?
I don't know. And the one thing you learn about polls,
go ahead.
And all the polls going up and down,
like
and
a roller
I think
coaster.
It's more so in this election than I've ever seen it, is that there's this old line that the only poll that counts is the poll on Election Day, etc. But people tend to, I hate to use the word lie, but that's the only word. They lie to pollsters because they lie to themselves a lot. And especially, the New York Times did a front page story on this a couple of weeks ago about this secret hidden question, this problem, racism. Just as we didn't want to talk about sexism, didn't want to talk about sexism. We had two big issues in this campaign. Barack confronted the racist issue, we thought, when he made that brilliant speech. He was running against Hillary then, but I will say it was a brilliant speech. I wish somebody would make a speech like that about sexism.
Kennedy did that down in Houston on the Catholic issue.
Yes, exactly. But nobody wants to talk about, people don't want to talk about, because they can't even admit it to themselves that they are prejudiced. And I recently saw the revival of South Pacific at Lincoln Center.
Did you? Yeah.
And there is a wonderful song, which, I mean, over the years, I've always referred to this song.
Wash that man right out of my hair?
Darling,
that's
not
a good
quite
one.
That one.
That's a good one?
This one is You've Got to Be Carefully Taught.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And it is all about, Rodgers and Hammerstein said that they wrote that song, and Richard Rodgers' daughter has said that it was their comment, and was very brave back in the 40s to make that kind of a commentary about prejudice and racism. And it goes, you've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before if you're 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. And it is something that it is ingrained in people, and they don't even know it. They're not just lying to the pollsters, they are lying to themselves. And I will tell you, I am also on the board of something called the National Jewish Democratic Council. Just in case you haven't noticed the way I talk.
Is there any chance you're Jewish? I thought maybe. I thought there was a hint there about, Nakis.
I will tell you, in the Jewish community, and the stuff that is going around on the internet, and we have the internet now, so everything happens immediately. I mean, and there is something goes out on the internet or on the blogs, and it becomes a statement of fact. I mean, half the people in this country still believe that Barack Obama is Muslim.
Well,
and in the Jewish community,
is it that high?
It is that high, or maybe a third, okay? Maybe it's gone down a little bit, but still the numbers are unbelievable.
The Muslim has become what used to be the communist in the minds of the pop. The big enemy was communism or Russia. And if you're going to say who's the bad guy out there, where's the big bad guy? It's the Muslims. So you would want to try and, like McCarthy did with communism, anybody, or you
accuse everybody.
Yeah, right. So if you're a Muslim, you're the bad guy.
Exactly.
So that's the thing they would naturally try and do in that gambling casino called the political process.
But especially through the Jewish community.
Particularly them, because most Jewish people are totally in support of the country and worried about the country of Israel.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So that's an issue.
But we're also worried about anti-Semitism, and we're also concerned. But it's not. It's in the Jewish community, but it is all over. And the prejudice, what's been going on, especially since 9/11. And the fact is that it's insidious. And people will not admit it. They don't talk about it. It's not talked about in polite company.
Were you encouraged by Mr. McCain taking exception to people at the lower level of the Republican thing, using that middle name in an introduction, and they said we do not cotton on to them using that middle name? It's beyond the pale. That happened just yesterday.
He said it. He said it. He has said it again. It's what they are putting out under the radar. You know, people say a
hidden
lot of
persuaders,
things.
Vance Packard called it.
Oh
And
my
those
God,
admin
you're going
are
back
really
to
good
admin. You're
yes,
going back
right.
to admin.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
But
And they're obviously going to do that because the presidential election is like a great big ad campaign to sell cornflakes. And those people in that industry know how to manipulate emotions and all that. And that's how they win the market share or the election.
Harold, there is something new this election cycle that even didn't exist to the extent that it has in even as late as 2000 or 2004, and it's called the Internet. Yeah. And we now have, as I said, I've been doing media for a long time.
You sure have.
Now we call me a communications consultant. I used to be a PR person, but now we don't say PR. We don't say public relations anymore. We don't say media relations. We say communications. It's this year's word. You know, it covers the same thing. But I will tell you that we used to have what we called news cycles.
Yeah.
You had for the more, you know, you would put out press releases. You would give out information. You would hold press conferences so that it made the 6 o'clock news, or that it made the 11 o'clock news, the night news, or that it made the early edition of the New York Times or the local papers, or it made you know, the cycle on the radio news. But now we don't have news cycles anymore. We have a 24/7. We have cable, and they've got to fill it. And how does cable fill it? From what is put out on the blogs.
Yeah.
I mean, and what is put out over the Internet. And you have, again, I'm trying not to mention any person or group or blot by name, but you know who they are, that they don't even check their sources. I mean, one of the things, if I would put out a press release and send it to a news outlet, I would send it to NBC or CBS, and I would say something absolutely outrageous while I was, you know, promoting one candidate and putting down another candidate. That would be checked out. They did what they called fact-checking.
Well,
now they don't.
Yeah.
Now not on some of the blogs, not some.
Oh,
on
not
some
a blog,
of the news,
no, but
that becomes the news. That becomes
or
the
it can
information.
become.
No, it does. It does, because what happens is that the cable news networks, they have to fill not just the 6 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock
24
news,
hours a day,
24/7, and so they get whatever comes across.
Yeah, well, if it bleeds, it leads, and the thing is, if it's got something that's going to get like selling cornflakes or an election, getting the people to watch your set, so your channel. So you'll get the ad revenues to make the stock go. That's what it's about.
But now
it's all a big sales pitch.
But now we have the various blogs and the various internet, we'll call them networks or whatever, and they also take advertising. So they will now go with anything. And you have people writing blogs on the various larger blogs, and nobody checks them out.
But isn't it good that we've got more that's called democracy. You're a democratically inclined person, and democracy involves the people more than just a select few elite.
Fine.
Usually those select elite, whether it's the Whigs at Versailles in 1789 or whatever, are of a Republican persuasion because they're high-born from the beginning and so forth. But democracy begins to come in, and isn't it good that there's more and more voices that are able to at least get a little bit of a hearing and maybe catch on?
As long as the voices don't present what their opinion.
Well,
as
of course
fact,
they're going to present what their opinion.
No, but as long as they don't present it as fact.
Well,
if you present opinion, if I say this is look, I'm sitting here telling you what I feel, and I have said very clearly, this is my opinion. This is the way I feel.
Right.
That's fine. But when something goes out on the blank report, and you can all fill in the blank.
Drudge report?
I don't want to. I said I'm not going to use it.
I used it.
Fine. Okay. It goes out as fact, as absolute fact. It doesn't say we think or we believe.
Well, why bother with all those bad drugs? You know, those modifying things.
Well,
because you're trying to sell a product.
But that's when the harm.
Have you ever looked at ads? Have you ever looked at ads?
But then you know it's an ad.
Yes.
You know it's an ad.
Yeah, but that's what.
Do you know in newspapers we have the news pages, and then we have the editorial pages, and we have the op-ed pages, and we have advertising, and it is billed as advertising, and that is somebody trying to sell a product. And they say, truth in advertising, they say, I am trying to sell you this product. But it is not put out as a news story.
Yeah, but they're going to tell all the truth, but tell a slant, Emily Dickinson told us, because you're trying to get a product sold. Have you ever seen how they utilize, let's say back to Mr. Packard, they can utilize human psychology and manipulation of emotions and that kind of thing enormously, let's say around just something generally that's brought in is the, let's say, the sexual aspect of human consciousness. They bring that in and put it in subliminally. They can even put it in subliminally, and they will do that. And the political campaigns are nothing but an ad campaign to sell a product or person.
But that's not
what's the difference? What's the difference?
Be. Yeah, it is, but it shouldn't be.
Well, what's the difference?
And I'm idealistic enough to, we had a book going back to the Kennedy campaign in 1960.
White,
there was a
Mr.
book
White, Theodore
after
White.
came out, and it was called The Selling of a President.
Oh, the selling of,
The Selling of a President.
Who wrote that? There was one, the making of, White did those books.
No, White did The Making of a President.
Yeah,
and
very
then
good
after
reporting,
that,
yeah.
There was, something I don't remember, but it has, that's what we are down to now. We are down to 30-second sound bites. We are down to, it's morning in America. We're down to even the debates, 3 debates, and that's it. And it's not about the substance. It's not about the issues.
No, it's emotion.
It's not about anything except sound bites. But I am still maybe idealistic enough to believe, even though I live in a pragmatic world, and I am a pragmatic politician, and I heard John Kennedy say that politics is not a dirty word, so I am a politician, but it doesn't have to be a dirty word. It's just the way that it's practiced by some people.
In the current campaign, don't you think Obama is staying much closer to what would be called the truth and the facts than Mr. McCain? Virtually every ad that they put on in the last week or so is a negative ad attacking some small aspect, because the trend is toward Obama seriously, particularly with the economic thing, so they're going to attack ads that are based upon like page 6 rumor kind of things in order to manipulate the human emotion.
Absolutely.
Isn't that the case?
Absolutely. And that's what...
You're afraid that might work?
Well,
because it does work in the marketplace for selling products.
Excuse me. Have you heard about swift boating?
Yes, of course.
Okay. It worked.
Yeah.
In 2004.
It did.
Okay.
You're afraid it might work again.
Swift boating has now become
a noun.
It has become a noun, and it's become also a verb. You swift boat someone.
Right.
It's not just a noun, it's a verb.
Yeah.
And that all comes out of what was done in 2004.
I remember,
because we used to have the political parties putting out the advertising. And then we had, so that there could be some sense of responsibility, you now have the tagline that says, I'm Barack Obama, I approve this ad, or I'm Hillary Clinton, I approve this ad. But we have all of these groups called 527s, and that comes out of the whole, what John McCain is taking credit, McCain-Feingold, and he keeps on talking about how he came together. Well, there were more loopholes in that legislation that people jumped through. There was enough room for a loophole for the two of us holding hands to jump through.
And do a couple turns.
And do a couple
somersaults through the air.
And these are the 527 committees, which are responsible to nobody.
Right.
And nobody, supposedly, they're not supposed to have any connection with the campaign.
So it's
all done with a wink and a nod, because they can say, I didn't have anything to do with that, said George Bush. I would never do anything like that, said Karl Rove in 2004.
Yeah, and Karl Rove won 2 terms for Mr. Bush, don't forget, by using that kind of thing. And they can, not to mention manipulating the vote, maybe by machines and so on. But I began asking you the question about who's going to win the election, and you cited a sense of... You would want it would be Obama, but then you brought up these other techniques of manipulation of human consciousness that you can't trust the polls, is what I heard you say.
That's right.
And so, again, back to the question, who's going to win the election?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay.
Don't
because
know.
The polls are all going for Obama.
I would hope, but I have to tell you, as we're shooting this, we have a little less than a month to go.
No, it's only about 20-odd days, isn't it? Well, this is the 9th.
In 20-odd days, But we have a saying in politics, and especially this year, which has been, as I said, I've been doing this 44 years.
Yeah.
48 years, I'm sorry, because it was started when I was in college.
They seem to go by faster.
I actually got involved in, and we have always said, in politics, a day is a week is a month, and a month is a lifetime. Well, right now, we have lived through about 20 lifetimes in this campaign.
Dorian Gray, take note,
We still have a lifetime to go.
Yeah, right. You're right.
We
really
have a lifetime, and God, you know something? If a month ago, I had started talking to you and telling you that the Dow Jones average was going to go below 10,000, that there were going to be this crisis with not only subprime mortgages, but with credit, and that the credit markets, and that would be, and that...
Well, we would have sent you immediately to the serious backwards at Bellevue Hospital for the mentally ill.
I mean, I would have, well, don't use that term, honey, because you know I do a lot of work with and it's not something that I can make fun about. I do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of the mentally ill.
Thank you for that.
So I'm sorry for correcting you like that.
That's quite all right.
One of the
it was a sidebar.
Yeah, that's one of the things that...
They would have said you're crazy.
Well, no, let's not even use the word.
Can't use the word. They would have said, how do you say, out of touch with reality?
No, they probably would have said, Trudy, what are you? They would have said, Trudy, what have you been smoking?
Yes, that would be more
At least the people that I hang around with probably would have been saying that. The people that we both hang around with.
Smoking be marijuana then. You smoke marijuana a lot?
Do I? No, I don't.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I don't. That would have been a term just as
See how they can manipulate things?
You just tried.
We got a soundbite now. We got a soundbite. Edit that sucker.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's perfectly okay, because people would have said, they would have assumed that I was smoking something
marijuana. They wouldn't assume you were smoking a cigarette. You were smoking some consciousness-altering object.
Exactly.
Right. Do you see how the society is going?
Because a month ago, it was so who knows what is
going to happen in the next 20 days?
In the next 20 or so days.
Yeah, boy, we got enough on our plate.
I mean, it is just... So you can't tell, and the polls can't tell. You know, there's this old line that a poll is a snapshot of a moment in time. So it is today. It is after we've had 2 presidential debates, 1 vice presidential debate, and that is what the people are thinking right now, this moment in time.
I think everybody's thinking about the economy. And that plays well, for good or ill, in terms of the roll of the dice of time for Mr. Obama. McCain just pulled out of Michigan.
I asked you another question, Harold.
Okay, dear.
A month ago, or 3 weeks ago even, 20-some-odd days ago, was anybody even thinking about the economy?
No. Yeah, I was. But
not to the extent of where that was the be-all and end-all of everything else.
But Mr. Paulson was then.
It's the same thing now. We don't know. God, you know, we always talk about an October surprise.
Yeah, right.
That's a line that everybody is familiar
out of Reagan,
with. And we don't know what is going to be happening in these next 20-some-odd days.
But don't you like the trend of the polling in terms of the direction they seem to be going? First of all, I've learned after all my years in politics, you always run scared and you never assume anything. Until the day after the election?
Exactly. And until the votes have been counted and recounted and been certified.
And all those machines have been taken into account.
And we also have that. We saw something we saw in 2000 and in 2004.
Yeah, and we got a Supreme Court decision that was a doozy, wasn't it? Yeah.
And we don't know with all these new voting machines out of there.
Yeah.
That's why New York is still using the old voting machines.
Really? Okay.
We were sued by the federal government because we refused to put in voting machines that didn't have a verifiable vote.
Paper trail?
Paper trail, exactly. Because we don't know. We don't know, and now I will name the machine, the Diebold machines.
I knew John Diebold. I did programs with him. He was a very good guy. I really liked John Diebold. He was a very visionary guy. The company was taken over by others. But Don Diebold should not be brought and connected with shenanigans in terms of voting machine manipulation.
No, I am not talking about any individual.
No, I just put that out for the record because his name is tied up with it. It was his company, but it wasn't him.
But does he?
He was a great guy.
Does he
He's
run
not
the
living.
company?
He's passed recently,
He's passed.
but he was cybernetic. He was a very progressive guy.
Well,
And so I just want to make that point.
Absolutely.
Because they tied it to that, but there's others there. But he was a good guy.
But there are a lot of voting machines but it's just a question of having a paper trail and it not just being on the computer.
Yeah, and that
we
isn't
all know that everybody can hack into a computer.
Yeah, that isn't party anything. That's a whole systems view of understanding.
You don't know, and we don't know what's going to be. So
I think maybe you just don't trust technology. You just don't trust the software makers.
Well, I always say that life was a lot simpler when we used 2 tin cans and a string.
I remember.
To
did you do that?
Yes,
some
when
wax
we were little kids.
Yeah, I did that with my friend next door.
Exactly. Because, and I'm still from the day, I still remember when we got the first fax machine in a political campaign. It was 1984, and it was the size of a a large dishwasher or a refrigerator almost.
Right.
And everybody walked in.
What a miracle.
Because we were getting something. We all said, it's like Star Trek. It's a transporter, and it's a transporter of words. And you know, now...
And that whole trend, you understand that whole trend is it's going almost exponential now despite everything.
Exactly.
And it's just going to get more and more and more, and it's democratizing. Do you like the general trend of, like we're on a cable channel here that is done in public access for the people, which would have been unthinkable in 1965 when everything was done. You had 3 channels everybody watched. They had a link, you know what I'm saying? And it's a democratization where we got a lot of people here who are just the people talking. The general trend toward democratizing things is something to be encouraged, even though you're going to get a lot of dissonant voices and confusion within the thing where a lot of people who have not been heard of historically in terms of decision-making are being heard of increasingly.
Again.
Don't you think that's a good trend? And a thing that the political activists have to be aware of and how to use. And it seems to me Mr. Obama has used that, Mr. Axelrod and so forth, they've used the communications. They're doing a lot of text messaging. The young people are going to maybe turn out in incredible numbers because they're very tech savvy and that kind of stuff, and they're using the net to raise money. They didn't have to go to PACs, that kind of thing. Don't you think that's an encouraging trend sociologically or politically for the society that is demonstrated by Mr. Obama's campaign, Mr. Axelrod, and so forth?
I think it is good, but just as anything that is good, it can be taken over by bad people and it can be perverted. What Barack has been doing, bringing young people into the political process, I only hope that they're also going to vote because they can get involved in the process and then not vote. And historically, since we changed the voting age to 18, and we said this was going to bring in a whole new generation and everything, but we have still not had over 50%.
And you're also addressing this thing on the Puma thing to get the women who might be going like that to do that. So that's the thing.
It's not, again, it's not just women.
No.
There are men who are also part of this.
Well, it's anti-misogyny, which is a good trend,
I want you to know
trend.
that this, just like everything, as I said, deja vu all over again. I was very active in 1968.
God bless you.
And this is 40 years later. We're seeing the same thing. In 68, they called themselves
Were you
the
in
McCarthy.
Chicago?
I sure was. In
Did you get gassed or bombed
no,
or
I wound up with a black eye, which I actually got on the floor of the convention, but that's another story for another time.
That was a humdinger.
Yes, but I just want to tell you about 68 because I was there and I was active in that campaign, and I saw it.
For Humphrey?
And it is the same thing. Or can I just?
Yeah, we got 3 minutes left.
It's the same thing all over again. That a lot of the so-called McCarthy kids, and I was there with McCarthy, and then I was with Humphrey.
Okay.
I went over just like I'm doing now. Because I was very much against the Vietnam War, and I demonstrated against the war. And Hubert Humphrey was against the war too, but he had a misplaced loyalty to Lyndon Johnson, and if he had come out against the war, but there are all these ifs in history that will go on and on.
I did a program with Mr. Humphrey right around then.
But I will tell you that I see the same thing again, which is that just as the McCarthy kid said, after 4 years of Nixon, then we can really have a good Democrat in there, whether it's McGovern or whether it's McCarthy again or whoever. And so what happened after? So they didn't necessarily vote for Nixon. They sat on their hands. They didn't vote at all, or they voted for the Socialist Workers' Party or for some third-party candidate, whatever, out there. And what is happening now? I'm seeing it now. A lot of these Hillary supporters and supporters of other candidates who didn't like Obama, they're not necessarily, there are some Democrats for McCain, but an awful lot of them are just saying, oh, I can't bring myself to vote for McCain, so I'm just going to sit this out, or I'm going to vote for somebody else. Now, that they should not do.
Everyone should get out there and vote.
If you do that, every vote is really two votes. It's a vote for, it's a vote against. And if you sit it out, you are losing one of your votes. And that is what concerns me and so many of us, that these people will just sit it out. And then we will wind up just as we did in 1968 when they said after 4 years of Nixon, well, you know what we had after 4 years of Nixon? We had 4 more years of Nixon. We had a constitutional crisis. We had Watergate.
We sure did.
And now God knows what will happen. And we were in Vietnam for another 4 years.
Not until 75 we didn't get out,
Exactly, another 3 years.
Yeah.
So for anybody who thinks
killed,
that by
4
not
million
voting
South
for Barack
Asians.
Obama, I'm giving you now my stump speech.
You've only got a minute left.
And I will also say...
Quick now, Trudy.
I will also say the one line...
New York, there's a minute.
It's called an elevator speech, Ann Lewis's favorite term. And it is, I will just ask everybody, if all else fails, think about Barack Obama as you do old age. Even if you don't think it's too great, consider the alternative.
Yeah, that's right. Is that yours? You got that
That's
trademark?
my line.
Have you got that trademark? Can I use that?
You may use it. I hope everybody else uses it.
Along with
just think about it as you do old age.
Right under
Even if you don't think it's too great, consider the alternative.
We'll have it right in the article that's going to come out of this interview saying that Trudy Mason smokes dope. we'll manipulate it somehow, but I know that isn't true.
That is the line that I want to leave you with.
Okay, very good. We'll come to the end of the line here for this. My own thank you, Trudy. So
Harold,
good always to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Pleasure to have your perception, a real stalwart worker for the Democratic Party. Trudy Mason, and the election's coming up, and one and all are encouraged to go out and vote in the election for sure.
Please vote as though your life depended on it, because it does. And vote for Barack Obama.
I think they better run the credits.
Joe Biden.
And Joe Biden is the vice president. We only just got started talking and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I'm encouraged by the trend, and whether it's for good or ill, that the swift voting is a worry and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's very likely to become, and I don't want to discourage anybody to go out and vote, but I think it could become a landslide. I saw a thing from Huffington the other day, floating the idea that it might just become a landslide
You know something?
for Obama.
But
I know we shouldn't talk about that.
Don't say, because everybody must vote. Because a lot of states, it's not about the popular vote. We learned that before. It's about the Electoral College. We still have that antiquated system, and we have to live with it. And everybody, and also encourage